Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2025 American Express DFS Tactics show. A little bit delayed, so I had a prior commitment, but no fear. We are here to cover everything you need to optimize your lineups for the American Express this week. Since I'm running behind, let's just get straight into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. Go check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where I post research, my betting cards, and my top players that I'm using in my lineups every week. So if you want to see those pieces of information, give me a follow at your preferred social media site. Gabe's handle is also in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a great way to start your week of preparation, and he continues to update you throughout the week with his own version of course history, recent form. You really are missing out, so make sure you are subscribed to his article. It is free to do, and go show him some support. Follow him over on social media. And then lastly, for this very shortened intro, we are live, chat's open, want to hear from you all. I do not have a poll question for this evening since I'm running behind, so if you can think of a good poll question, feel free to put it in chat, and I will post that for everyone to view. But no poll question. I want to hear from you all. Who's your winner? Who are you targeting? Who are you staying away from? And of course, we're going to have the 2025 Picks Challenge continued at the end of the show between Gabe and I. So make sure you are tuned in for that. So let's get into it. Let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2025 American Express. And we are going to start, as we always do, as soon as I figure it out, where we always start is the super forecast. Over at Wind Finder, very little wind in the forecast, maybe a little bit tomorrow in terms of some gustier winds, but really shouldn't come into play. And remember, this is a 54-hole cut, a 3-day cut, since there are 3 courses being used. So if you wanted to see the full cut, looking at Saturday, again, very little wind, just not a factor this week, and we're not going to be looking at anything wind-wise, filter-wise at Fantasy National. And any wave stacking would essentially be course stacking this week, since each player in the field will play the Stadium course, La Quinta, and the Nicklaus Tournament course one time, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then anyone who makes the cut will play the Stadium course on Sunday. So again, no weather or wind to really speak of. So we're going to exit out of Wind Finder. We're going to go to Fantasy National and do a very, very quick review of a couple of things. And again, I seem to always forget to unstar these players as I was attempting to gather the ownership projections. Okay. Just remember, if you submitted lineups early this week, that Xander Schauffele and Denny McCarthy are not playing. They have decided not to play this week at the American Express. So what we're going to do, you see the 2024 and 2025 filter. Let's start with short courses. Since I did not end up using that filter all that much in the mixed condition model, your top performers in terms of a strokes gained total view on short courses since the beginning of 2024, those players have been Justin Thomas, Michael Kim, Ben Griffin, Keith Mitchell, Eric Cole, Christian Bezuidenhout, Tom Kim, JT Poston, Wyndham Clark, and Patrick Fishburne. But the filter that I've used very, very prevalently in the mixed condition model is easy. This is a very, very easy tournament. You're going to have to go upwards of 6 or 7 under per day to have a chance at winning. So win rounds have been easy relative to par in the past 12 months, essentially, since the beginning of 2024. Sungjae, Davis Thompson, Justin Thomas, Harry Hall, Ryo Hitsatsune, Ben Griffin, Wyndham Clark, Chan Kim, and Kurt Kitayama. Okay, with that, I think that's enough of a review or a check-in on some of the overarching strokes gained total metrics that we want to look at. Hey, good evening, Pete. Thanks for jumping in chat this evening. Much appreciated. Hopefully you've had a good week. You're ready for the American Express. I hope your Century and Sony went much better than mine. Had a good sweat last week with Stefan Jaeger outright, but he decided to hit one OB and killed his chances there and killed any chance of me having a decent week. But we're going to try and turn it around this week for the Amex. Good to see you this evening. The mixed condition model that I have made for the American Express this week, we're going to start with 10% off the tee when rounds are easy relative to par. Yes, you could look at short courses as well, but I feel that if you use the short course filter for off the tee, then you're going to be looking at a lot of fairway finding, a lot of forced layups, and that's not really what PGA West is. Now, some players will choose to take less than driver off the tee to position themselves in the fairway, but really, as we saw, especially Monday night in the Data Dive show, a lot of your former champions here have really pushed the throttle in terms of off the tee and distance at PGA West. So that's why I went with the easy relative to par filter last year or so. 10% strokes gained off the tee, 20% strokes gained approach, just the be-all, end-all here at PGA West, especially the stadium course. The PGA West, the stadium course, the greens are fairly large, but the Nicklaus Tournament course and La Quinta, those greens are pretty small. So you're going to have to be really solid with your irons. Of course, in Birdie Fest, you got to have really good iron play to give yourself a lot of opportunities, which we'll talk about here momentarily down here. So 20% in approach for this week in the mixed condition model. 5% strokes gained putting, and you see this courses multiple. This is that Poa Trivialis. This is Harbor Town, Innisbrook. Those courses that I looked at all week for Poa Trivialis. So if you're interested in seeing what the full list of those courses are, go check out either Sunday night or Monday night show. I go through putting quite a bit in those two shows. But we're looking at Poa Trivialis, and I went all the way back to 2023, the start of 2023, just so that there were enough rounds to make it statistically significant. So 5% strokes gained putting, 5% driving distance when rounds are easy. The same thought process behind off the tee and why I'm using the easy filter there applies to the driving distance. You could look at driving distance on short courses, but then again, you're really kind of narrowing your search into courses that are extremely forced layups as opposed to what PGA West is, and really a player's choice where you can hit driver, really push the throttle, or lay back. So 5% driving distance, 5% sand saves. We didn't talk about sand saves at all during the week, and this is all credit to Gabe. In his article, and then as I was talking through with him throughout the week, how he kept mentioning how these are some of the toughest bunkers on tour. And it makes a lot of sense, especially around PGA West in that 16-foot Cavendish bunker. But it's not just that one. These are some of the toughest bunkers that players will play out of on the PGA Tour during the year. And a lot of course renovation happened last year in the sense that they really redefined these bunker edges. So they're going to come into play more often this year than I think. So 5% in sand saves, 2024, and then whatever little 2025. 10% opportunities when rounds are easy. Again, with a birdie fest like the American Express is, you are going to have to give yourself a lot of opportunities. So 10% opportunities gained, 15% birdies or better when rounds are easy. Hopefully pretty self-explanatory. This is real easy. You want to see who gets the most birdies or eagles when rounds are easy. relative to their competitors. And then to finish the mixed condition model, surprisingly, no par 4s. Each of these courses has 4 par 3s, 4 par 5s, and they have some added significance, especially the par 3s. So 15% in par 3s, total par 3s, 15% in total par 5s. You could argue to look at 500 to 550 par 5s as about 60% of the strokes gained total in the par 5s come into that range. But I just wanted to see all par 3s and all par 5s since especially the stadium course has a good mix of par 5s. And the par 3s are pretty evenly split throughout the ranges in terms of strokes gained. So we were always going to look at just total par 3s. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. No around the green this week. I just don't think that's going to come into much of a factor. If it does, it's probably going to be in these sand saves, since most of these greens are protected by bunkers or water. And if players are relying on around the green, they are going to be losing a lot of ground, considering how easy these courses are. So no around the green. I've got a pretty significant weighting to ball striking and a pretty heavy significance into off the tee and the distance aspect of off the tee. So if that doesn't come to fruition, I'll be weak. But the past several years, distance and off the tee in general has been a pretty big factor around PGA West. So really leaning into that. If the par 4s have added significance, sure. If any specific proximity has a significant amount of weight, I'll be weak to that. But as we look Monday night, not a whole lot of those proximities warranted looking at them specifically against the PGA Tour full field event averages. So there's a look at the mixed condition model. We're going to go to Microsoft Excel, the reveal of my rankings. And as a reminder to returning viewers, for your information if you are a new viewer, my rankings are based on 3 criteria. The FNGC rank, which is a numerical ranking based on the mixed condition model we just went over, the metrics and filters, the percentages applied to them. Course value is an attempt at giving a player a numerical value at how well they've played that course the past 5 years. You see Siwoo has played here very well, Davis Thompson, etc. Justin Thomas only one time in the past 5 years, but he finished 3rd, so he's got a very low course value, which is good. Whereas other players such as Michael Kim, JJ Spawn, they've been less consistent here. Andrew Novak has been pretty bad. He's got a very high course value, so that's a part of my rankings. And then lastly, we are playing DFS. We are trying to find unique options compared to our fellow competitors, or our fellow contestants. So percent owned or projected ownership, and these ownerships are per Fantasy National, are also a factor into my rankings. My rankings for the American Express go as such. Keith Mitchell is my number 1 player. Siwoo Kim, Davis Thompson, Tony Finau, and Justin Thomas round out my top 5. Wyndham Clark, Sung Jae, Doug Gim, Ben Griffin, and Tom Hoagie round out my top 10. No real surprise here. I am, or at least in the players that are in the top 10, you can always argue the ordering. A little surprised Keith Mitchell ended up being number 1, but when you have such a severe significance into ball striking and you limit the putting, Keith Mitchell is naturally going to rise. And in fact, he's actually been okay on Poa Trivialis. Not great, but okay. And he's also getting helped by the fact that he is sub 10% owned at the moment, projected. Siwoo Kim, really like Siwoo Kim this week. Sung Jae is getting hurt by the fact that he is the second most projected owned player on the slate, so he's dropping a little bit, despite the fact that he's got amazing course value, course history here. So no real surprise, at least in my mind, regarding who is in my top 10. Let's go ahead and sort on the price board and figure out where members of Fantasy National seem to be gravitating and see how we can maneuver around all that chalk. So in the 10Ks, thanks to Xander's withdrawal, we only have 2 players. We have Justin Thomas and Sungjae, 10-4 and 10-3 respectively. Now, both of these players certainly warrant consideration. I would be a little hesitant on Justin Thomas. Yes, he finished 3rd here last year, but before that, and it had been a while, it had been 2014 and 15 or 2015 and 16, he didn't play particularly well here, and he did not putt well here, as you can see by his Poa Trivialis putting here. He's generally not good on this surface, and he's not a great putter in general. However, everything else lines up very well for him. Plenty of opportunities. He's a very good wedge player, which is used around PGA West a lot. Maybe not the strongest off the tee, but good enough. Top 10 in par 5s, nearly top 20 in par 3s, which you have to be very good in par 3s to really excel here at PGA West. Plenty of birdies or better approach. So everything but the putter is very good for JT. He's also quite a bit more unique compared to Sungjae. But I'm still going to go with Sungjae in the 10Ks if I'm in the 10Ks. And I'm not in the 10Ks all that much. But if I am, I'm going to Sungjae. I just believe in the past 5 years. He's 5 for 5 here. Average finish of 15th. Nothing inside of a top 8. I think his best finish is a T10. He's just been extremely consistent here. The irons are better than what are showing. Par 3s are about his worst. Off the tee is good. Gives himself plenty of opportunities. A lot to like here with Sungjae. So that's where I'm going in the 10Ks if I'm going there in the 10K. If I'm going into the 10Ks, but I'm going to be honest, I'm really not there all that much. Moving to the 9s. Sam Burns, the most projected owned player. I can't argue against it considering how good he has played here. This is just an ownership fade on Sam Burns, and it's a dangerous one because he's been so good here. But there's others I like a lot in the 9Ks. So I don't have to use Sam Burns all that much. I'm not going to. I'll have him once or twice for the coverage. That's about it. Cantley's also played extremely well here. You see the par 3s. He's much better at par 3s than what this is showing. He's just had a bad 2024 with them. Second in par 5s, top 15 and off the tee. Nothing wrong here with Patrick Cantlay at 14%. I would be excited if Cantlay was only 14%. I do have a feeling he's going to be slightly more popular than that. So I'm going to try and limit my use of Cantlay, but I do like Cantlay quite a bit. Finau, I really like. I spent some time talking about this Monday night, how you have to pay attention when traditionally poor putters over multiple years show you that they like a surface, if they continually gain strokes on a surface. And Tony Finau has done that here at the American Express. There's something about these greens that fit his eye. They're not necessarily the most complicated greens. In fact, if we go to Fantasy National, I'll fix the page view just very, very quickly. And we go to Tony Finau. He is putt really, really well around the American Express, or around PGA West. Let me see if I can zoom out there. So you see in 2023, he gained nearly 3.5. And in years prior, gained 2. And even these negatives here, negative 0.2, negative 0.5, 0.3. Those are pretty darn good for by Tony Finau standards. If he's field average with the putter, he's going to be all right. And the fact that he has gained so much in the past 2 years, 2 measured years, because we didn't get the strokes gained data last year's American Express. I like Tony Finau quite a bit, and of leaning into the distance, the off the tee. Tony Finau makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be using a lot of Tony Finau. Seems like he's middling owned. I would much rather play Finau than Patrick Cantlay. Hard to say who I think is going to be more owned on this one. Tony Finau is probably going to be more owned, but it's close, as you see here. Again, nothing wrong with Wyndham Clark. You're talking about distance and off the tee, 8th off the tee, especially when it's easy. 2nd in opportunities and nearly top 10 in putting on Poetry Trivialis. Wyndham Clark is somebody to really take a long look at, especially if he hovers in this 10 to 12% ownership. So I mention all the time that you can't play everybody. So I'm going to be off of Tom Kim. I know he rated nearly top 30 for me, but can't play everybody. Sam Burns makes a lot of sense. I like Cantlay. I love Finau. Clark's fine. So I'm not going to play Tom Kim, and I'm going to be very, very cautious on Max Grazerman. I've seen a lot of people really hyping up Max Grazerman this week, and for good reason. He's one of the hottest putters on the planet right now. I think the guy has gained strokes putting in 7 or 8 straight tournaments, and in a putting contest that makes a whole lot of sense. But I'm a little worried with the irons. Pretty subpar. And he doesn't give himself a lot of opportunities to take advantage of that really hot putter. So while I'm not full fading him, I will definitely have Max Grazerman a time or two. I am definitely limiting my use of Max Grazerman. And then lastly, in terms of the 9Ks, I'm not using Cam Young. It's just all about the putter here. He's been really, really bad on Poetry Trivialis. And I don't want to spoil anything, but we're going to see Siwoo a whole lot tonight. So I'm going to be all in on Siwoo. So there's a look at the 9Ks. Again, Burns is fine. Cantlay's fine. I'm going to limit my use of Burns, though. It's an ownership fade as opposed to a player fade. Because Sam Burns has been very good around here. Cantlay's fine. I really like Finau. I love Siwoo. Wyndham Clark's fine as well. So I am not using Tom Kim. I'm going to be very, very cautious on how much I use Max Grazerman, and I'm not using Cam Young. Moving into the 8s, Davis Thompson. Really like Davis Thompson. You see he has been very good in 2 tries here. Very, very good. Plays extremely well when it's easy. 4th and birdies are better when it's easy. 12th off the tee when it's easy. The irons are good. I like Davis Thompson. I know I've been fading him recently. I think this is a good spot for Davis Thompson. Harry Hall's probably going to have quite a bit of ownership. He's been playing spectacular. If you want to ride the hot hand, I understand it. But he's been pretty mediocre at the American Express in his previous 3 tries. Number 1, birdies are better when it's easy, though. So, this guy tears up easy courses. And despite the fact that he is so poor off the tee, there isn't a whole lot of trouble he can get into off the tee. It's really with the second shot, the approach, that the water comes into play. And his irons have been pretty good. I understand the love for Harry Hall. I think he's going to be more owned than 14%. If he were 14%, I think it's fair. I wouldn't be excited about it, but I think it would be fair. I think he probably gets into the 16% area, and that gives me a little bit of pause. I want no part of Kitayama. You see how poor his course value is. He's only played it once, but it was really, really bad. Kitayama is generally better when he can let his long iron game carry him to victory. Look at his win at Bay Hill, where long irons are necessity around Bay Hill. That's not PGA West. He's also not great on this surface outside the top 100. So I don't want any part of Kitayama. Spawn, not in love with this week. He's been pretty poor here. Not a great putter on Poetry Trivialis, despite his win at TBC San Antonio. It's okay. Not great. Not in love with it. Nick Dunlap, wins coming out of nowhere last year. That's why his course value is extremely low. It's also looking like, at least for Fantasy National, getting overlooked. I'll play him. I'm not going to go crazy about it, But at 6%, the defending champion, sure, I'll play him a little bit. Love Eric Cole. He's some chalk I'll eat along with some Sungjae. I like Eric Cole quite a bit. Don't see any issue with Eric Cole. Harmon, it's fine. Good on the surface. 12th in putting on Poa Trivialis. I do worry about his length though. Hasn't kept him from performing well here, but this is kind of a gut feeling. I'm a little gun shy on Brian Harmon and Fishburne and Nick Taylor. No thanks. Nick Taylor, has played okay here, but a lot of the things that Nick Taylor excels at, other than the putter, just don't play here. Like the around the green, I don't see being a big factor. He lacks a lot of distance. He's played okay here, so if you don't mind going with the double dip, but it's a lot to ask a player to win and then the next week play on the PGA Tour. So I'm off of Nick Taylor. Fishburne's not been good here. It's only one time, but yeah, I'm just not there with Fishburne. So there's a look at the 8s. Davis Thompson I'm going to be using quite a bit. I want to like Harry Hall, but I think this ownership creeps up quite a bit, and I won't be shy to use some Nick Dunlap. Won't go crazy with it, but I won't be shy to use it. Moving into the upper 7s, hard to argue against Nico Echeverria, anyone being hotter at least on the PGA Tour. He hasn't been great here, so there's a lot to say about confidence, but like his irons haven't been the most stellar. They're getting better. He's really lacked in par 5s, but he's been fantastic on par 3s, which you have to be around PGA West. So maybe that's what carries him around this week, along with some renewed confidence. I don't like the ownership, so I'm just going to stay away. I think this is too high on Nico Echeverria, but I understand it. No thanks on J-Day. Love Ben Griffin. This is some more chalk I'll eat. I even like Tom Hoge this week. Tom Hoge is not a very good putter, but you get him on Poa Trivialis, he's actually not too bad. So I like Tom Hoge. 11th in opportunities. Par 5s he plays well. He's a little bit, but Tom Hoge at a 12.5%. I don't love the ownership, or don't love that number, but I'm going to play some Tom Hoge, probably despite my better knowledge. But I love both of these guys at 78. Be on the lookout for Hadwin. I'll be talking about him, later in the picks section. But you think about desert golf, Adam Hadwin's one of the first names that you need to think of. Moving into the the mid 7s, there's not a lot here I like. I know Kevin Yu rated out well, but that putter just scares me. I mean, he's been very, very bad on this surface. He's got all the distance, all the ball striking you could ever want, but it's that putter that really falters. And I was hopeful on him at the Century. Putter was very, very poor. So I'm gonna wait and see if I can't find Kevin Yu at a better spot. I think Berger, missed the cut last week at the Sony. I still think you're able to buy low on Berger, but he's still inconsistent working back from that injury. So Moving into the low 7s, Keith Mitchell, my number 1 player. I like Keith Mitchell, but you're always going to be worried about that putter. So, all ball striking extraordinaire. If you can stomach a bad putter, or you think he's going to have a good week putting, fire him up, especially at a sub 10%. Again, I'll use him, but I'm not going to be as high on him as the number 1 ranking would suggest. Novak's been really bad here, so any positive is kind of thrown out with that in multiple tournaments. Mac Miser's only been here once, and it was poor, But he's also one of the few players that doesn't have a pink or red statistic across here. He's been playing pretty well. I don't like this ownership, so I'm going to use Mac Meisner once at most. Because I understand he's very hot like Nico Echeverria, but he's not going to be unique. Much like Keith Mitchell, take a look at Doug Gim. Ball striking, fantastic. It's the putter. The putter's always going to hold him back. So if you think he has a good putting week or think he's going to be so anywhere field average putting, you can fire up Doug Gim. I'm not confident in that. Instead, in the low sevens, I'm going to mention Alex Smalley because he's 3 for 3 with a T21, a T22, and a T25. They're not spectacular, but they're top 25s on a low 7K player. It's fine. I'm surprised to see him at 9.5% ownership. I was hoping he would be more like 6 to 7%, but he's been very consistent at PGA West. Same with Andrew Putnam. Joanne mentioned him Monday night. He didn't rate out worth a damn in my rankings, but he's been very, very good here. A lot of the hurt on him is the off the tee stuff. Almost dead last off the tee when it's easy. Second to last in distance when it's easy. There's something to be said about him having performed well here. So you can take a long look at Andrew Putnam. He didn't rate out well for me, but hard to ignore how well he has played around PGA West. Instead, in the low sevens, I'm going Eric Van Rooyen a whole bunch. I mean, a whole bunch. You want to talk about somebody that can go low. Take a look at what Eric Van Rooyen did in a birdie fest down in Mexico during the fall. Not this past fall, but the one before at El Cardinal. The guy went like 27, 28 under. Different style, of course, because you had a bunch of fairway, you had a bunch of misroom, but Eric Van Rooyen is somebody to really take a look at this week. Played pretty well at the Sony. He was top 30 at the Sony and gained in all 4 statistical categories. Off the tee, approach, around the green, putting. So take a long look at Eric Van Rooyen. If EVR does not play well, I will lose. I am all in on EVR. Hey, good evening, Phil. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Good to see you this evening. Hopefully you are ready for the American Express. Apologies for no poll question this evening, as I got a very, very delayed start. So, and I didn't mention that to you either, P. But if either of you think of a poll question, if you think a question that would be interesting for chat and the viewers to answer, put it in there, and I'll put something up real quick. Got an outright on Mac Hughes. Just like last week, I just don't see it. He's not been very good here. Mackenzie Hughes is generally good when around the green matters. Around the green, if a player's having to rely around the green here at PGA West, they're just falling, they're plummeting down the leaderboard. Now the putter is very, very good, top 10. But I mean, you see this course value, it's horrendous. I can't get there. I mean, I wish you luck. I couldn't have recommended it. But you know, the most important opinion is yours. So, you know, I definitely put in some wagers last week, and I'm sure some of the wagers that I put in this week are going to bomb out. But Mackenzie Hughes was never really on my radar. Somebody else in the low sevens I want to point your attention to is Chan Kim. Always plays very well when it's easy. You see fourth and birdies are better when it's easy. Much like a lot of these other players that we've talked about, you got to stomach a bad putter on this surface. He's actually not a terrible putter in general, but he's been very bad in his short time on the PGA Tour on this specific surface. But you're more playing Chan Kim because it's easy. And in the seventh, or at 7,000 exactly, take a look at Joe Highsmith. I do like Joe Highsmith. particularly because he is very good on par threes. And they are going to carry a significant amount of weight this week, or at least traditionally. They've carried a lot of weight at PGA West. So I'm actually not going into the 6Ks much at all, or any at all, like at literal zero amount of 6Ks. I can give you a couple of names, perhaps. One of the top rated ones was Matty Schmid. He's a decent putter on the surface, but the irons haven't been great. Justin Lauer has not been very good here. There just wasn't a whole lot that excited me about the 6Ks. Now, Gabe really likes Carson Young. He rated out in the top 25 for me, so okay. Very good when it's easy, so I can understand where Gabe is going with that. But the types of lineups I'm making just don't require me to go into the 6Ks, so I'm just not there. But, again, Matty Schmid, Justin Lauer, Carson Young at 67, okay. Again, I was hoping Ryo Hitsatsune would make a move once he made the cut, and he just kind of stalled out on the weekend. But he was tied for 11th here last year, so I wouldn't mind going back to the well with Ryo Hitsatsune, I guess, if I was down here. But I'm just not down here in the 6Ks when building my lineups. So there's a look at the price board where at least members of Fantasy National seem to be going. Let's start making some lineups. We're going to start with tiers contests. Tier 1, thanks again to Xander's withdrawal, we have Justin Thomas and Sungjae. I'm going to go with Sungjae even if he is the more popular player in Tier 1. I'm just more confident that his floor is relatively safe. Clip this for next week if he misses the cut. But I'm just confident in Sungjae at least providing some modicum of value, whereas Justin Thomas could just bottom out with that if that putter doesn't cooperate. People tell me to go Jason Day, but I've been getting killed by him. I'm not there with J Day. He rated outside the top 110 for me. I just can't get there with J Day. He's been okay here. Probably, my guess is they're telling you to go. You're hearing a lot about a J Day because of his short game, like sand saves and his putting. And this can turn into a putting contest. So I mean, it's a reasonable conclusion, I guess. Reasonable reason. I can't get there. I just can't get there. Not very good on the par threes. The irons have been really bad. And I can't get there. So again, Tier 1, give me Sungjae. Tier 2, Burns, Cantley, Finau, Wyndham Clark, and Grazerman. Give me Tony Finau. Not particularly close. I just love Tony Finau this week. He's been so very good here. So is Burns and Cantley, but I think Tony Finau might be the more unique of these three. And I think Grazerman's going to get a lot of attention as well in Tier 2. So I'm hoping Tony Finau's pretty unique. And I like him a lot this week. So Tony Finau, Tier 2. Tier 3, Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim, Cam Young, Davis Thompson. Davis Thompson, Kirk Kitayama. For me, it's a two-man tier. Between Davis Thompson and Siwoo, I'm going to take Siwoo. I don't blame you one bit if you go Davis Thompson. I'm going to go Siwoo. Tier 4, Harry Hall, Spawn, Dunlap, Zalatoris, Cole, Harmon, and Nick Taylor. Hall is going to be very popular, but for a good reason. I like Harry Hall. Dunlap would be quite interesting and be quite bold if you go there. So I'm going to go with Eric Cole. Probably the most unique or most chalky option in Tier 4, but I'm going to ride Eric Cole until he either wins or he falls off. I'm a big believer in Eric Cole's game. So give me Eric Cole in Tier 4. Tier 5, Fishburne, Echeverria, J-Day, Ben Griffin, Hoagie, and Poston. For me, it's between Griffin and Hoagie. Again, I will go Griffin thinking that Tony Finau is unique in Tier 2. If he's not, you're going to start running into a whole lot of ownership here. But give me Griffin over Tom Hoagie in Tier 5. Lastly, Tier 6, EVR, Chan Kim, Sam Stevens, Harris English, Mac Hughes, Taylor Moore, and Chris Kirk. Chan Kim provides a whole lot of uniqueness and is quite intriguing in Tier 6, but I'm going to go with Erik van Rooyen. So this tier's construction, very quickly, we'll go Sung Jae in Tier 1, Tony Finau Tier 2, Siwoo in Tier 3, Eric Cole in Tier 4, Ben Griffin in Tier 5, Erik van Rooyen in Tier 6. Okay, let's start making some lineups, some classic lineups, figure out where our fellow contestants in Fantasy National seem to be going, see how we can maneuver around them, and then, of course, we're going to end the show with the Picks Challenge. Between Gabe and I, we are sitting dead even at the moment. I took a 1-point lead after the Century. Gabe beat me by 1 last week, so we're sitting dead even after 2 weeks. Let's start making some lineups. We're going to start, looks like we're going to start with Sam Burns. This very well could be Sung Jae. I'm going to use the most projected owned player. That's Sam Burns. It looks like it'd be pretty tough for our fellow contestants to go M and Burns because, at least for Fantasy National, Lucas Glover is about the bottom of where our fellow contestants are going at 72. You see, going M and Burns just doesn't give them a whole lot in terms of wiggle room. So I'm going to start with Burns. Then it looks like they're coming down to probably a Grazerman, who I think is going to have quite a bit of ownership. Harry Hall is going to have quite a bit of ownership. And they're probably done in the 8Ks. Might be able to squeeze an Eric Cole in, but instead I'm going to go into the upper 7s for a Nico Echeverria. No, actually, Ben Griffin. And then 72 each. Let's see, Mac Meisner. Lucas Glover's too much. So if I back off of Hall and go Cole, that gives us enough here. It's leaving, a couple hundred on the table. But this is going to be pretty duplicated, I think. I can see Meisner's ownership jumping quite a bit. Grazerman, I think, is going to be much more than this 14% projected per Fantasy National. So I could see this jumping to about 95% or so cumulative. That's pretty bad. It's pretty ugly. We don't want that. And then if our fellow contestants are going into the 6Ks, which it doesn't look like they are, at least not very much. Again, it's Matty Schmidt at 7%. That's really about it. You got Justin Lauer at 6.5%. Kuchar at 6%. That's really about it. Not a whole lot being used. So you're going to be building a bunch of balanced lineups, essentially, or at least some top-heavy balanced lineups. If they do jump up to Sung Jae, they still might go Grazerman, but this might be Harry Hall instead, and then Eric Cole, Nico Echeverria, and again, the Mac Meisner, Lucas Glover, bottom, Ben Griffin could probably get squeezed in here. I think people sleeping on Willie Z because he's better at harder courses. I was hopeful on Will Z at the Century. He was kind of mediocre. He's in the upper 7s, isn't he? Will Z. I thought he was in the upper 7s. Oh, low 8s. Mid 8s. 84. I mean, he was... he's generally better at harder courses, but the irons just haven't been back to Will Z standards. Not to mention, while his win is on POA, it's POA Anna, not POA Trivialis. He's one of the worst on POA Trivialis. I don't know. I would just much rather go Dunlap because we know he likes this course. That's just me, though. I can understand wanting to get off the Eric Cole chalk. But I think I would much rather go to Dunlap instead of Will Z if I'm doing that. So how are we going to maneuver around this with all these balanced lineups running around? Well, the first way you can do that is a stars and scrubs. And what I can tell you is you don't have to go into the 6Ks. You can use both 10K players and still not go into the 6Ks. It's tough, but you can do it. I gave you several players in the low sevens here. I didn't mention Ryan Gerard, who played pretty well last week as my Mad Scientist play. Jackson Suber was fantastic last week. I like Joe Highsmith. He would definitely fit into this kind of stars and scrubs-esque kind of lineup. Rico Hoey didn't play well here last year, but generally plays pretty well when it's easy. I mentioned Alex Smalley at 72. I like both of these guys at 71, EVR and Chan Kim. Chan Kim, Eric Van Rooyen. And I mean, that leaves you 8,100. That's a Patrick Fishburne if you're there. I'm not. Ben Griffin, somebody who's been playing very, very well lately. Tom Hoagie. Even Bo Hostler, if you want to play on the putter. Bo Hostler is very good on Poa Trivialis. I'm gonna go Tom Hoagie to save. Well, I don't really need to save ownership, but in fact, let's just go Griffin. I'm a little more confident in Ben Griffin. I mean, you're still only at 64%. I like Highsmith for the par threes, but there are some concerns with Joe Highsmith. I really, really like EVR this week, and you've got two of the three, if not two of the top two tournament favorites. Ben Griffin's been playing very, very well lately. So this is one way you can go about it. This kind of pseudo stars and scrubs where you don't have to drop into the 6Ks if you don't want to. There wasn't anybody that I was excited about in the 6Ks. So, that's not necessarily the way I've been going about it, but you can. You can do that. Instead, I'm just trying to beat these balanced lineups. And the way I've been doing that, I mean, I've still been using my fair share of Sungjae, been using my fair share of Sam Burns, but a lot of times I'll be going Tony Finau, and who I think is going to really bust this open is Siwoo. I am all in on Siwoo Kim this week. If you didn't check out Gabe's article or his post sharing our reasoning behind our picks, like I'll have our picks here momentarily on the screen, but him and I both go into some in-depth conversation about why we chose the picks that we do each week. I go into a pretty good summary of why I'm all in on Siwoo. Despite the fact that his putter looks pretty bad on Poa Trivialis, a little nugget here for you. He's never, and I'm talking in 6 tournaments, never lost strokes gained putting on these greens. Now, I just gave him the infamous jinx, so he's going to lose 80 strokes this week on the greens. But just saying, he is very, very comfortable on these greens. Despite the fact that he got a miscut last week, I think that helps us. I think that's going to suppress his ownership. I am all in on Siwoo. And, I'm off of the Sam Burns and the Patrick Cantlay chalk and the Grazerman chalk by doing this. I still have a former champion here. Siwoo won this in 2021, maybe 2022. And Tony Finau, who has played extremely well here. And I've got plenty of room. I can average 7,800 per player on the rest of this. So, if I like a Davis Thompson, I can go there. I can use a Nick Dunlap. Quite honestly, I have saved enough ownership here. I've been going Eric Cole because I like Eric Cole that much. I know he's one of the more projected on players, but again, because I'm off of the chalk in the 9Ks and Sungjae 10K, I feel like I can afford to go a chalky Eric Cole. You can go Brian Harman, Adam Hadwin, somebody who has been fantastic at this tournament, right at 10%. And the bottom of this has been Erik van Rooyen. I am all in on some Erik van Rooyen this week. He's been really good here. I was impressed, despite the lack of top-end finish, being tied for 30th last week. I was impressed with his performance statistically at the Sony, particularly his off the tee. He's a good putter, gives himself plenty of opportunities. I like Erik van Rooyen. I think this sets up well for him. And then, fill in your last guy how you want. 80. You have 8,300 here to play with. Like, you can leave quite a bit on the table. Go with I don't know, maybe like a Daniel Berger, maybe like a Mac Meisner. Leave quite a bit on the table and be very unique. You can go Ben Griffin. In fact, let's switch this. Go Ben Griffin. You're still at that 70% cumulative ownership. You might get duplicated once or twice, but the fact that EVR is in your lineup probably gives you a whole lot of uniqueness. You're off of the chalk at the very top of the price board. These are the kind of lineups I've been building. Really anchored with Siwoo. I'm just all in on Siwoo, especially at his deflated ownership. I love Eric Cole, love Ben Griffin. I'll use them. They're chalky, but I really like them. I'll even throw Tom Hoge into a lot of the lineups as well. Maybe get off some of the Ben Griffin chalk. But this Adam Hadwin is very workable. You can save even more and go like Keith Mitchell, go Chan Kim. There's a lot there that you can work with, and you have enough money. Like if we go Hadwin here, if you want to, maybe you want to try to squeeze in a Sung Jae or a Justin Thomas. You have the capability to. You just need to find 300 somewhere. You can come off Adam Hadwin. You can come off the chalk of Eric Cole or Ben Griffin. Maybe you go from Cole down to Nico Echeverria. Or you turn Ben Griffin into a Keith Mitchell, a Chan Kim. Let's see. This would become Hadwin, and then you have 75 per. Again, that's Daniel Berger, Keith Mitchell, Mac Meisner, Doug Gim. Me personally, I'd probably go. You can throw in Alex Smalley, who's been very good here, 3 for 3 here at PGA West. There's a sub 70% with Sung Jae and Siwoo. But again, Siwoo's kind of been the anchor for me this week, trying to get off the Max Grazer and chalk, avoiding a lot of the Burns and the Cantley. Davis Thompson absolutely could fit into this as well. If you want to get a little bit more greedy, we probably have to come off of Sung Jae, go to Tony Finau, Siwoo, Davis Thompson. Still have Erik van Rooyen, Chan Kim, Rico Hoey, Joe Highsmith, and you still have Eric Cole here. 62%. So these are the types of lineups that I've been building this week, just trying to beat these balanced lineups that seem to be so prevalent. All right, we're going to end the show as we have as we will throughout 2025 with the wrong page view, with the pick selections. So for Gabe and I at the American Express, we start off with Gabe. Gabe's going out on a pretty big limb. I know I've given him some friendly barbs. Not really, just he took some very, very wise, reasonable options the first 2 weeks. He's actually going on a pretty big limb, going to take a 6,700 Carson Young as his winner this week. So kudos to Gabe. I like it. Getting very, very aggressive with that selection. I am going to take Gabe's role this week. Going to go out on a major limb, and I'm going to take Sung Jae to win the American Express. Favorite plays, I love Siwoo. Siwoo, Sungjae and Siwoo are 1A and 1B for winner for me. Siwoo's just my favorite play of the entire week, so I put him in there. And I didn't want to duplicate and put the same person twice. Sorry, let me fix this labeling. So I'll take Siwoo as my favorite play. Gabe's going to go with Patrick Cantlay. Makes a whole lot of sense. As we talked about, he's been very, very good here. I do think that ownership will creep up a little bit, maybe into the 15 to 16%, but certainly no Sam Burns level. And it's probably going to be more unique than Tony Finau, if I had to guess. So like that from Gabe. I'm going to fade Kurt Kitayama. Depends on what your definition of chalk is, but I do not understand why Kurt Kitayama is garnering double-digit percentage in terms of ownership. I'm just off of Kitayama. He needs long courses where his long irons separate him from the rest of the field. That is not PGA West. So I'm just off of Kitayama. And Gabe's going to fade Max Grazerman. Makes a whole lot of sense. We talked about Grazerman a little bit. Despite the fact that he is such, on fire essentially with the putter, he's lacked a little bit with the irons. He doesn't give himself a whole lot of opportunities. Makes some sense to take a strong stand there with Grazerman. I kind of agree with him. I'm not going to use Grazerman much at all either. Mad Scientist play. I'm going to go with Eric Van Rooyen. I would have liked to have gone into the 6Ks for you all. I just don't like much in the 6Ks this week, so I went with as low dollar, low ownership play as I could, and that's EVR at 7,100. Gabe's going to go with Brendan Todd. We didn't talk about Brendan Todd at all this evening. In fact, I couldn't tell you what his price is, but Gabe's going to go with Brendan Todd, and at least conceptually makes a lot of sense. You want a very good putter on a course that can become a putting contest. Doesn't require a whole lot of length to contend. Makes a whole lot of sense. So Gabe's going to go with Brendan Todd as his Mad Scientist play. Fear of missing out, our FOMO. Gabe's going to go with Davis Thompson. I'm going to go with Adam Hadwin, strictly based on his history on desert resort courses. Not just PGA West, but TPC Scottsdale, TPC Summerlin, the host of the Shriners. These courses that are desert resort style, Adam Hadwin has been very, very good. Despite the fact that he rated out, outside the top 100 for me, I'm going to make sure I have him in a lineup. I think he's going to be in the mix. He just loves desert golf. And then finally, our wild card category for this week, we went with top rookie to emulate Nick Dunlap last year. We could have went top amateur, but I think there are 2 or 3 amateurs in the field. So we just went with top rookie. We're both going to take Paul Peterson. Again, I'm not going to speak for Gabe. If you want to see his reasoning behind his picks, go check out his social media, which his handle is right there on your screen. He posts his and mine kind of write-ups. But for me, I'm going to take Paul Peterson because I was pretty impressed with his performance last week. He's played now 2 events on the PGA Tour, the RSM, at least 2 events recently. I believe he was an amateur and played the U.S. Open a few years back. But anyway, he played the RSM. He played the Sony. He gained 7.2 and 1.5 strokes on those greens. And while those are pure Bermuda, he's at least shown that he is a good putter or a hot putter at the moment. And in a tournament that can turn into a putting contest like we've talked about, give me a guy that's rolling hot right now with a putter. So I do like Paul Peterson for top rookie. That's going to be it for the show this evening. Sorry for the delay as I had a prior scheduled commitment. Thanks to P and to Phil for jumping in chat. Very much appreciated. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. I love what I do. Taking a very in-depth look at golf statistics, giving you a statistician's view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little money in the process. Stefan Yeager killed that for me last week, so we're going to try and get another good sweat going for the American Express. So thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you've made this week for the American Express, for all the DFS contests you play this week for the American Express, for this weekend and every weekend. May all your bets be profitable.